Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada. A very icy Ontario, Canada today, quite slippery on the roads out there. We are here with another episode of the Yakking Show. And this is the show that provides you with a greater range of actionable business ideas and tips in one place on the internet, practically than you will find anywhere else. And we always have interesting guests to give you those tips and ideas. Today's will be no exception. But first, let me introduce Kathleen Beauvais from Waterloo, Ontario. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you all so very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate you and we love reading your comments. So do please keep those coming. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, all you have to do is visit our website at theyakkingshow.com, click on the contacts page, and there's a short application form for you to fill out. We'd love to hear from you. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. His name is Seth Erickson, coming to us from Texas. Hello, Seth. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Now, Seth, you are the founder and Chief Mischief Maker at Storify Agency as I said, out of Texas. You help startups clearly communicate their value to the marketplace through storytelling. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and what's the story behind being the Chief Mischief Maker and starting Storify Agency?
Yeah, so man, it's a long story, but I'll try to condense it. So I, for a long time, ran a very successful web design agency. We won a lot of awards, we made a lot of money, and at the end of the day, we found out that we were not actually moving our clients' businesses forward. We would say, "Hey, you got this new website. Are you getting more customers? Are you selling more?" And they would say, "No, but we really love the website." And that started to become a problem for me because I got into business to help people, and
Mhm.
I am helping them by building a website, but I want their business to grow and move forward, just like I want my business to grow and move forward. And so kind of ran into this issue where it was like, okay, making lots of money, that's good. Winning awards, that's good. Not actually making a difference, that's bad. So ended up kind of like reevaluating everything that we were doing in the business, and realizing that we needed to not just make pretty web designs, but we needed to do something that would actually move the needle for our clients. And I looked at a lot of marketing stuff and took a lot of courses, read a lot of books, and I felt like most of it was just not very good. It was a little bit scammy. You're playing on people's emotions, you're going for emotional triggers and things like that. And I just didn't like it, just didn't fit me. Right. Like, and I'm not saying any of that stuff's wrong. Obviously it works. A lot of people are very successful at that. So I don't want to throw any shade on anybody here, but I just needed to do marketing in a different way. And a friend of mine gave me a book called Winning the Story Wars by Jonas Sachs. And he said, "You know what? I think this would be a match for you. You're a storyteller. You tell stories all the time. This might make sense for what you want to do and where you want to take your business." And so I read that book, and that guy was running an agency. They did videos mainly, and they talked about how powerful storytelling was. And I was like, well, this is really interesting. So I read that book, and then I read more books, and I read Hero with a Thousand Faces, and learned about the hero's journey, and started realizing that there was sort of a formula to how you tell a story, and then how do you do that in an effective way to get clients to kind of understand what your value is? How do you do that to differentiate yourself in the marketplace? So I did, read books like Script by Robert McKee. So anything I could get my hands on about storytelling, which script is storytelling, but it's, more in a script form for a movie. And I said, okay, there's got to be a way to kind of apply this. And so I just kept reading and reading and reading and reading and reading. I think I, bought like 50 books on storytelling in 1 year and just read them all, and started to realize that, like, we can apply some of this to marketing. I would say that Story Brand was another great book that kind of explains that. And I kind of got to this point where I was like, you know what, let's start trying some of this stuff. I'm reading a lot, but I'm not taking any action. So we started applying storytelling to emails. We started applying storytelling to websites. And lo and behold, our clients started seeing higher click-through rates, longer time on site, lower bounce rates. Their emails were getting read and responded to. And I was like, hey, we're actually doing what we should have been doing all along. This is great. So that's kind of the journey that got me to where I'm at now. And then it just kind of came to a point as well where the all this information and knowledge I had, I was like, man, I really want to share this with people. And so I literally sat down and knocked out a book in 2.5 weeks because I just already had all the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just need to organize this. The irony of the whole thing is that it took 5 months to get it edited because I'm not a very good writer. Like, my grammar is bad. I repeat myself, so that was kind of an interesting journey, but I did enjoy the process. And, I'm very, very grateful for all the people who have read the book and given me wonderful feedback. So that's a little bit about me. To answer your other question, Chief Mischief Maker came up because, we run a small company. Our hierarchy is pretty flat. Like nobody's like, the CEO or the head person. It's like, we're all working together as a team to try to like solve our clients' problems. And I'm not better than the next person, like I have my strengths, they have their strengths. And so I was like, CEO just seems kind of, too fancy. And I was like, what do I do? Well, I get up to trouble. I'm a little bit of a Loki type character. And so Chief Mischief Maker just sounded great. And yeah, people comment all the time. They're like, that is an amazing title. I wish I had that title. So.
Yeah, that's very good. So I've got to ask you, are you still doing straightforward web design or is it all based around helping people build a story now?
Well, we combine the two together.
Okay.
So we have what we call a brand foundation. And a brand foundation is basically it's your website, because a lot of your customers, whether you're running ads or they see you on something, right? Like you're on a podcast or whatever, they're going to research you. And what are they going to do? They're going to go to your website. They see an ad, they're going to go to your website. Any form of marketing quite often is going to lead back to the website. And so that's where we want to tell the story or start the story about your company, your brand, your product, whatever it is. So we see the brand foundation as your brand being kind of like, central to who your company is, but at the center of your brand is a story, and at the center of your story is your customer. Mm-hmm. So we kind of overlay all those things together, but your website tends to be Grand Central Station. That's where everybody's going to go through. And yeah, there's other places like they can go to YouTube and get content and things like that. But once they're interested enough, they're going to, take that step to do the research and everything that Google says is, that they're going to go through your website. So, that's what we do is we combine storytelling and building websites and building a brand through that central foundation of your website.
Can you give us an example of that, of what that looks like, Seth? Because when you're talking, I get the impression that if you go into a website, usually there's an About Us page. So you're not just talking about us, trying to give the story through to that particular tab on the website, but you're actually creating the entire website to tell a story. Is that right?
Yeah. So one of the easiest ways to grab people's attention when you tell a story is to start with a problem, right? The hero always has to have the inciting incident, right? That they run into. So we start with whatever our clients think their client's biggest problem is. And we talk about that. We don't talk about how great their company is, how many awards they've won. Mm-hmm. We talk about like, we talk about, like I said, we make the customer the center of the story. So we talk about what is the problem that your customer faces, because they're experiencing that problem right now. And if you talk about that instead of yourself, then they're going to be more willing to listen, and they're going to be more willing to dive deeper into maybe learning about you. But like generally people come to you because they're like, I have a problem. It seems like you can solve it. Can you solve it? Right. And you talk about that problem, and then you talk about that problem at deeper levels, right? Lots of people will talk about problems at a surface level. And as an expert, you should be able to talk, 2-3 layers deeper about like, what's going on. This thing is leading to that thing, is leading to this thing, is leading to this other thing. So, so that's actually what we do, is right on the homepage, we start with whatever the challenge is that the customer is facing. And we leave it up to our customers to explain to us what that challenge is. And then we take them through a story framework that allows us to kind of pull out of them what the story is that they want to tell. So a really good example of this is a company called Abbott Construction, ABBOTT construction.com. Their customers' big challenge is that when they hire a construction company in California, they're immediately not allowed to go on site until the project's finished. So that leaves the customer kind of in the dark, uncertain. They're spending millions of dollars. Is everything getting done all right? And so Abbott Construction talks about that you never take a back seat when you're working with us. Like, you are always, we're transparent. You're always kept up to date. You never have to feel like you're left in the dark. And so they're telling the story around this problem that their customers have and that they understand, and empathizing with their customers. And then they take that problem and they transfer it into, what does a transformation look like? Well, when you work with us, you're going to get this. You're going to have this experience. This is how it's going to be. And by the time your building is ready, you are going to feel calm and relaxed, because everything's taken care of down to the the most minute detail. So that's sort of the story. It's a kind of a 3-act play. Problem, right? Solution. That's you or your product or service. Transformation. What does life look like on the other side of that? Are you achieving the thing that you actually want? Because nobody actually, what's that marketing saying? Nobody buys a drill because they want to drill. They buy a drill because they want a hole.
They want a hole, correct?
Yeah. And so that's another thing that we talk to our customers quite often about. Like, don't sell what you do, sell what your transformation is, right? That's where the story needs to go. That's what people get excited about. At the end of a story, if a hero is not transformed, then the story is really boring and flat. Like, nothing's changed. Like, what was the point of the story, right? Nothing's different. And so you want to see, that arc in the hero's journey, of the hero's transformation, of struggling, overcoming. The guide comes along, the mentor comes along, helps them overcome, whatever it is they're dealing with. And then at the end, there's rebirth, which is the transformation aspect. So that's kind of how we explain it to our clients. And yeah, that's what we do.
Wow. Very interesting. So, sorry, I'm recovering from flu and I'm still coughing. I'm trying not to, but it's a hard one. Seth, are most of your clients business to business, or do you also do business to consumer, or do you do both?
We find ourselves doing all sorts of things. It really just varies by the year. We've done B2B, we've done business to consumer. The great thing is at the end of the day, you're always dealing with humans, and humans love stories. So it doesn't matter if we're doing B2B or B2C, because the audience generally will respond well to a story, as long as you're telling the right story to the right audience.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's true. Are marketers and brands getting it, that they need a story? Is that perception increasing, or do you still have some holdouts who are old school and resist this idea of marketing?
No, I think in general, I think we do a pretty good job of explaining it. And quite often people are like, oh, tell me more. That's really interesting. I didn't know that there was all this neuroscience behind, how the brain works and takes information, and how emotions are involved, and what actually gets us to take action, and how we retain memories, and how memories move from short-term to long-term. Like, we kind of explain all this in why you use a story. So that's, it's part of we do have some people who are like, I love storytelling, help me out. And then we have some people who are like, tell me about the storytelling thing. And then we kind of go through an educational process with them, which is pretty short. It's usually a phone call, and they're like, and we'll recommend, that they read the book, because that helps as well. But I haven't found too much resistance. Every now and again you'll have, it's not usually a business. It's like somebody in the business that's like, well, we've always done things this way. And then you kind of got to like win that person over. Right. But that's very rare. So
yeah.
Right.
Good, good.
So,
Back to you, Kathleen.
so how do you specifically go about unraveling someone's story? I'm sure you have tactics or and try to extract that from them in some way. How do you go about that?
Yeah, so we have a process that where we kind of take people through, and like you said, we've got 3 steps. What is the problem? What is the solution? And what is the transformation that your clients are actually looking for? So we talk about that. We talk about how do you set yourself up as a mentor, and through testimonials, through awards, things like that. And then we talk about, where does your customer want to go? And how do you know that that's where your customer wants to go? And usually it's because, the businesses we've been working with are either established, or they've gone, like if they're a startup, they've gone and done extensive research, right? And so market research is a huge thing. Like we've definitely talked to startups who are like, had a paragraph on a piece of paper and said, "Can you tell a story?" And I said, "I definitely can tell a story. I just don't know if it's the right story."
Right.
Yeah.
So understanding your customer makes all the difference. But that story could be around that problem. It could be around a vision, right? Like, this is where things are now, but here's where we want to go. There's lots of different types of stories, but generally we'll take them through this framework of helping them understand what is the hero's journey and how do we write that in a way that is, we're not creating a novel of a story. We're creating a very short story. And typically when we get done with that process, there's usually 5 to 8 sentences. So it's like a paragraph or 2, and then we can take that content and then kind of like write the copy from there. So so there's a lot of questions, and our job is just to facilitate the conversation with the client. We don't tell the client, like, this is what your story needs to be. We can make suggestions or recommendations, but generally we're asking questions and saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? They may say something that triggers a thought, and we may go, well, what if we said it like this? Or we may ask a question that triggers a thought in the client, and the client goes, well, what if we said it like that? So it's sort of a back and forth process, but like, we're not there, even though we're storytellers, we're not there to be like, this is your story, you have to tell this story. No, we're there to make sure we're telling our customer story from their perspective, right? And in a way that will hopefully connect with their clients.
Right.
Some marketers use what I would call endearing entertainment stories that have very little to do with solving a problem to great effect. I'm not a great beer drinker, but on the odd occasion when someone says, "Do you want a beer?" We have a Budweiser. I'll say, "Yeah, I'll go for a Budweiser," because I'm a horse person, and I can remember watching. I haven't seen them for a while. Those great movies or adverts, Budweiser adverts with the team of horses. So that story, there was one about the donkey, I think, or was it a small foal that wanted to be part of the team, and to me, as a horse person, that was a wonderful story, and it gave me a warm feeling about Budweiser. Right? So it's a total different way of using a story, but I think some brands do that quite effectively, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, Budweiser wasn't necessarily trying to so what they're doing in that case is they're pulling on your emotions. So they're not trying to sell you the product directly. They're trying to sell it to you indirectly, because when they, just like you did, they wanted you to recall, man, I saw this amazing, I think it was a Super Bowl ad. I think it's actually the most watched Super Bowl ad ever, about these Clydesdales. And the reason they do that is because emotion actually drives us to take action.
Right.
If we don't feel one way or another about something, then we won't make a decision. We won't take action. So they wanted you to have like this warm feeling about Budweiser. Coca-Cola actually does the same thing. They, every commercial, everything is about togetherness and community. Every commercial, right? They want you to think, when I get together with my friends, I want to have a Coke, right? So again, they're indirectly selling, by telling an emotional story, that, and emotions get logged in your long-term memory more so than facts and figures do. So, like one of the things that neuroscience shows us is that, if you don't, if there's nothing emotional about it, like I said, we won't take action, but also it won't move from short-term to long-term memory. And so one of the ways that I explain this to people is I'm like, think about your best memory, right? There's probably a strong emotion attached to that. Now think about your worst memory. There's also probably a strong emotion attached to that. Now think about the last time you went to the store to buy eggs. Can you remember when you did that? And unless it was, yesterday or something, you're probably like, I don't remember. I went to the store, I did some stuff, I was there. I remember being there. Like, but there's nothing, there's nothing happening that simulates that memory, because there was nothing emotional attached to it. So, or getting gas or whatever,
Yeah. Kathleen.
So can you tell us the difference? Because I think we saw this on your website, the difference between a story incubator and a story accelerator.
Yeah, so we're just speaking to the stages that startups are in. One is basically like we have like a very tight budget. We can't, do a whole lot, but we know we need something. And then, the next step up from that is like, yeah, we've gotten some funding, either, from a friends and family investment or angel investment. So we're talking, companies that probably got, $50,000 to $250,000. But they don't want to break the bank. And then the third option is basically like, we're series funded, like we have millions of dollars, we're ready to go. And so really it's just the size of the site, but we're going to still tell a story, although your story will shift and change. That's what we see with startups is, especially if they pivot, where they think this is our audience. Oh, wait, no, these people over here are buying it, or this is what our product is. Oh, actually it could be used in a completely different way than we realized. Now we got to change our story. So startups kind of go through an evolutionary process as they go through that transformation from being, two guys in a garage to, a multi-million-dollar, series, whatever funded company. And that story kind of evolves with them, but we want to help them tell the story wherever they're at in that journey.
Okay. Makes sense.
Right. Excellent. So let's get on to your book. You were telling us earlier that you wrote the book in 2.5 weeks and it took 5 months to edit. Tell our audience a little bit more about the book, and then you've got something for them, I think, that we're going to put into the description. So yeah, over to you.
Yeah. So I wanted to read a book that basically that I would want to read. I've read a lot of business books. They're frankly not very interesting. They're kind of dry, hard to get through. Really no personality, I think, is what it comes down to at the end of the day. And I wanted to not only share with people that storytelling is amazing, but give them some factual information about how we understand that the brain works. So there's some people who are like, well, prove this to me. And it's like, okay, well, I've got all the science. So the first third of the book is really the neuroscience of storytelling. How do we as humans work? How do we retain memory? Why do we lose time when we're watching movies? Like, kind of goes into all that stuff. The second part is how do you create a story, right? And then the third part is how do you apply a story? That's the other thing I don't like about business books is they'll tell you what you should do, but they won't tell you how to do it. Right? Like it's like me coming on here going, you should be a storyteller, but I'm not going to tell you how to do that. You got to figure that out or contact me if you want to. So I go into some very practical explanations in the final third about how do you apply the story to your website? How do you apply story to emails? How do you apply story to ads? And give kind of examples. And then along the way, I kind of, just try to keep things fun and humorous. I think the best comment I ever got about my book was, it's like Ryan Reynolds meets Seth Godin. I was like, yes, that is an awesome comment. So Canadian treasure, right? Like, so the book is kind of sarcastic. It's kind of snarky. I swear a little bit in there. Like everything I do with the book is kind of different than what you would expect. One of the other fun things is that the book has a playlist. So every chapter has a song underneath it. And then there's a playlist on Spotify. So the chapter or the song either conveys the feeling of the chapter or it kind of like mixes in with what the content's talking about. So so that's a fun one for anybody who gets the printed book. The audiobook can't really have the music, so but you can find the Spotify playlist and listen to it if you want, but it's a little difficult to listen to music while I'm talking. But anyway, so yeah, it's lots of fun. And then yeah, like you said, there's an audiobook. I read the audiobook. The audiobook is what I would call the director's unrated cut. I kind of put some of the stuff the editors took out back in the audio version. And then there's a interview with me and the director at the end, and a bunch of bloopers and outtakes and stuff. So it's a little bit different experience if you've already read the book. So
great. How can people get it?
So the book is on paperback and hardcover on Amazon, and then the audiobook is like, it's on Audible and like, I don't know, 30 other audiobook services. So okay. I can't think of all of them, but it's definitely out there. So
definitely out there. No problem. We will. And what's the playlist called? There's the important one for music lovers.
The playlist, yeah. So the book is called How to Hack Humans: Storytelling for Startups. Although, like, don't let the title fool you. Anybody who's running a business, whether it's a big one or a small one, you can use storytelling. And it's like, I use a lot of startup analogies, but like, you'll see how they apply to your business. So it's not like you can't. The Spotify playlist is just called How to Hack Humans. And,
How to Hack Humans. Okay.
Yeah, I keep it simple.
I will look for that. That's great. Good.
Well, Peter, we're running low on time here, but I know you have a burning question to ask Seth. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
I've got two. So let me ask him the short one very quickly. All this publicity in the last couple of weeks about Open AI and their new, what's it called? Oh, I've forgotten the name now. Where people are going raving. They've had 1 million signups in 2 weeks on AI generated content. Is this going to convince a whole lot of people who can't tell stories that they actually can use AI to tell stories? What's your thoughts?
Well, I don't know much about the software. I mean, I'm aware that AI writing software exists. I've never really looked into it. To be honest, like, there is a formula to storytelling, and if there's a formula to something, then it's possible that somebody could use AI to follow that pattern. Whether or not that creates a good story or not, that remains to be seen, because we've seen with a lot of movies, like, people will do formulaic stuff, and then when it becomes too formulaic, it becomes dry and uninteresting. So even though there's a pattern, there's a lot of variation in that pattern. It's just like music, there's only so many notes on a keyboard, and yet people keep making different styles of music and new things all the time. And so whether or not an AI will get to the point of being as creative as we humans are, I don't know, probably, but I don't think we're there now. I just think that from what I've seen, AIs can write well. They can put content together, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to, like, an AI is going to be able to understand human emotion and nuance and things like that. Sure. So that's kind of...
I agree with you. So here's the burning question, and I'll get it done quick because Kathleen's chasing me. We're going to run out of time. We ask all our successful people, and you've had experience with lots of businesses over the time you've been in business. So, Seth, to your mind, is there one habit, characteristic, or mindset that differentiates people who become successful? And I don't just mean making a lot of money. I mean having a balanced life, having a good life. Is there something simple that differentiates them from the average, or is it more complicated?
I would say that, what is it? That you should always be learning, like continuing education. I think if you're learning, then you're evolving. And as you evolve, things get better. You get better at your business, you get better with your relationships, you get better with whether it's your relationship with a spouse or your children or family members or clients or whatever. Like, so if you have that mindset that, like, I'm going to learn every day, and you don't come in going, I know everything, because nobody knows everything. And you try to look at your business or whatever you're doing with fresh eyes and go, how can I approach this differently? I mean, that's what kind of took us down the path of storytelling. And obviously storytelling, I think, is an important skill, but I think if you're just continuously open to learning, open to learning new things, open to being able to see something from a different perspective and not just assuming that you know everything, then I think that you will continue to transform as a person, which is, I think, an amazing hero's journey.
Right.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. That's great. Kathleen, back
Yes,
to you.
what a great response. Thank you so much for joining us today, Seth. We so appreciated having you on the show. Oh, but first, before we go, how do people contact you? Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, so we're at storifyagency.com. Storify is STORIFY agency.com. If you'd like to check out a free chapter, the first chapter of the book, which starts talking about the neuroscience, if you go to storifyagency.com/yakking, then you can find us there. Obviously, we talked about that you can find the book on Amazon or Audible. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Lots of people will connect and we'll chat and have different conversations there. But you should be able to find me pretty easily. Seth Erickson, look for the Chief Mischief Maker. You've got the right guy.
Good one. Thanks very much, Seth.
Thank you so much for that,
Thank you.
Seth. And once again, thank you all for tuning in to our show. And until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.